iGM Conversations, where we bring clarity on money, markets, and what it means for you. In Singapore's Budget 2026, the government rolled out one of its most significant spending plans in recent years. This budget isn't just about short-term relief, it's about positioning Singapore for long-term competitiveness. They affect how we spend, save, invest, and plan for life milestones like retirement. I'm joined today by Ko Yang Zhi, Investment Advisory Director at iFAST Global Markets, and together we'll break down what Budget 2026 really means for household. So maybe let's zoom in on one of the more commonly commented or discussed topic, which is the PARF rebate changes. With the PARF rebate being halved from 60,000 to 30,000, this actually affects anyone deregistering a car early. With this cap reduction, right, households planning to upgrade or replace their car will definitely see a significant drop in the cash refund for that. So my question is, does this actually make used car a lot more attractive than buying a brand new car?
I think first of all, to help maybe the audience understand this a bit better, when we talk about like PARF rebate, what exactly is this? So basically when you buy a car, right, there is this thing called ARF, additional registration fee that you have to pay for cars. I mean in Singapore, because we want to regulate the road conditions, right? So buying car, you have to buy a lot of different things. Yeah. So the ARF is something that we pay upfront when we buy a new car. And then at the end of say 5 years, 10 years, if you decide to scrap your car, the government says, oh, thank you for contributing, right? So you scrap your car, there's one less car on the road. So what we do is that we give you back what we call a PARF rebate. So in layman terms, people often refer to that as a scrap value of the car. So the PARF rebate and the scrap value is kind of like interchangeable. So I guess what happened with this new announcement is that if you buy new cars today, the PARF rebate or the scrap value is going to drop very drastically, about 45% for every single level. So take for example, if I own let's say Toyota Altis, right? The ARF that I pay when I buy an Altis is somewhere between say $10,000 to $20,000 around there, right? So 10 years later, if I drive an Altis, I scrap, I will get back $10,000. So in the past, that is good because I take that $10,000, I can buy another car, right? I can down pay part of it, right? With that thing, with the money, right? The scrap value. But with the recent changes, it will drop from 50% rebate to 5% rebate. So what this means is same Altis, initially 20,000, right? 20,000 I scrap, I get 10,000. Now 20,000 I pay, I scrap, I get back something like $500 to $1,000. Which is, I mean, you still get back something.
You won't be able to down pay anything.
So it's a lot lesser. So which means that today, if I buy a new car, the scrap value is going to be very low, very low. So in that sense, it does make buying used car a lot more attractive at this point in time. So if you're considering like at this point in time, I want to buy a new car or used car, right? Actually, a used car will be more budget friendly.
Because the new changes for the PARF rebate doesn't apply to existing, right? It's moving forward from mid-February onwards.
Yes,
then
correct,
it applies to all
the
the new
cars. Yeah.
So for parents, right, I think a lot of Singaporeans actually own car because most of them has kids. So how essential it is as a parent to actually own a car, especially now factoring the cost of buying a car has actually gone up quite significantly. So weighing the pros and cons between necessity and then also based on the costing now, how will you look at the situation?
Actually, think about this. If I'm being very honest, this is a first world problem. Why I say this? Because I'm sure everybody, we Singaporeans will love to travel a lot, right? You will realize like overseas, if we take a car ride 30 minutes, right? It is to people overseas, they'll say 30 minutes is
a short distance.
Short distance. In Singapore, 30 minutes ride is quite far already.
It feels very long, right?
Yeah, there are families with young children and everything. It does create a convenience. But at the same time, there are also other options, right? Like public transport, we have school bus and things like that, which are actually a lot cheaper alternatives, and they are also very efficient. And it doesn't take like 3 hours, 5 hours to reach school. You won't experience that. So I think car, I'm a car owner myself lah. I think the convenience is addictive. But if you look at it from a very practical standpoint, I don't really think we want to classify that as a necessity lah. It's nice to have. It's nice to have. Right? If your budget allows, you get that. You buy convenience. So that's good lah. But then, yeah, I don't
Do you
think,
think this
yeah.
will be one of the additional factor to deter Singaporeans from wanting to have more kids? I think we've seen that Singapore actually reached an all-time low in terms of fertility rate, right? So there's a lot of things about we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money and all. But I think transportation is also another key consideration for a lot of parents, especially for the first couple of years when your baby is really small. Do you think this will actually play a part as well in terms of family planning consideration, especially for people with, like, let's say more than 2 kids or 3 kids, because then the car you need will be bigger and it's also a lot more costly as compared to just buying a smaller car that you can just travel up and down, right?
Correct. I mean, this one, I think it's a bit more qualitative, because I think when it comes to fertility rate, sometimes it's very difficult to solve an emotional problem. Like, wanting to have kids is more of an emotional decision, right? But I think because we are in Singapore, we tend to think about it from a very logical standpoint, right? When you have enough money, we need to have a car and things like that. So, back to your question, right? I think it depends on how you view quality of life. Because why I say this is because someone could say that I view quality of life as having a nice big car that I can fetch my family with, or my kids. Then we go out on a trip together. It's very fun, right? So that's quality of life for someone. But quality of life could also mean other things to other people. For example, spending money on nicer experiences with the family, traveling more with the family.
Holiday trips.
Yeah. So, related to this PARF rebates causing, cars to be less affordable, right? It can be bad for some people, but it actually can be good news for some people, because there is a point where people will find that, I don't think it's worth it to own a car. And then guess what? They save $100,000, $200,000 because they don't buy a car.
Think of a different lifestyle
Correct.
altogether.
And they actually use that money to fund other things, like their lifestyle needs. They can eat a bit better, they can travel more. When they are traveling, they're more relaxed because they're like, I can spend more. And in fact, that might actually help, with the fertility rate, right? I mean, yeah, it might actually help because you're more relaxed. It's an emotional thing, right? When you are less stressed, you are more likely to want to have a family, right?
Maybe it's also a lot on the parents, I guess, because kids are very adaptable. I mean, they're like just newborn, they're probably like 1 year, 2 years. They don't really compare the difference between what's the difference between sitting on a bus or sitting in a car, right? So actually a lot of time for this consideration is more on the parents for the sake of convenience, being comfortable, more than the kids.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we move on to the next measures in the budget 2026, right? It's the AI adoption. So budget 2026 also ramp up support for AI adoption with expanded grants for business and skills future initiatives to actually help individuals upskill in AI. So as a working adult, right, how urgent is it to understand AI for your career?
So I first start by saying AI is a very big and very complex topic that everyone is trying to understand. I think it's hard for anyone to say that they fully understand the impacts of AI.
It's constantly
at the
updating
moment.
and changing.
Yeah, it's so dynamic. But how important, right? I think it's probably one of the most important things now, because AI is going to be integrated into every aspect of our lives, right? It will affect our lives, how we work, how we find information. Just like, actually Google is a company, right? But over the decades, we use Google and search online interchangeably, right? When they say we're going to search something online, we say, hey, let's just Google it, right? So that's how much Google impacted our life. And the next phase, right, is AI. That's how much AI is going to affect us. So if we don't understand AI, it's going to be quite challenging because it's going to change a lot of things.
So as a parent, right, I think we've been hearing a lot about how AI helps work, how AI helps in interpersonal relationship, lifestyle and all, but the least discussed part is how it affects kids. So as a parent, how do you think AI is going to influence education, and in terms of, let's say, how our kids are going to grow up in an environment that's going to be everything about AI?
Yeah, actually I'm a parent myself, so I think about this quite a bit. So I guess I don't have a perfect answer for this, but how I think about this is that we are shifting from a very knowledge-based economy to a more thought leadership-based kind of economy. So what I mean is, in the past, let's say 20, 30 years ago, our parents, grandparents, right, they would have killed to have the knowledge that we have today, the information that we have today, right? But today, information no longer is expensive. It's very cheap because you go to AI, ChatGPT, right? basically you can get any knowledge that you want, right? So knowledge is no longer the priority, which means in school, in the past where you try to memorize everything, you memorize and then go for exams, right? That no longer works already because the ChatGPT is going to memorize everything a lot better than you. Yeah, a lot faster than you and a lot cheaper, right? And they don't complain, they don't rest also, right? But humans, we need rest. So I think where the value add comes, right, is more on thought leadership, because AI, as much as it's very advanced, it's very productive, a lot of it is based on existing data, what has already happened, right? But for example, where humans come in handy is, about shaping what the future looks like that we want. What are the real human needs, how we want to shape the future. So in thinking about education, I feel like the first, say about 10 years is still probably going to largely be unchanged, because like first 10 years are like the primary school, secondary school. The topics taught during this period are the fundamental modules, right? Like mathematics. You need to learn how to calculate, right? Even if you go ChatGPT, you cannot even calculate, right? You don't understand what it is saying.
The formulas.
Yeah, you need language so that you can communicate, to even type into ChatGPT. You need science to understand how things around the world works, right? And things like that. So these are fundamental building blocks for children to understand about the world. But beyond that, right? Let's say if child is going towards certain specialization, I think then we have to think about it a bit differently already. Instead of like saying that, so if you do this, you get this, or remember that you need to do this. Basically trying to remember facts. I think that will change drastically. Instead, I think how we should think about it is like
how they can actively apply the
correct.
knowledge.
I think the critical thinking is more important. Like the child needs to understand, when I study, let's say I study medicine, why do I need to study medicine? Like why exactly do I need to study medicine? Is it because it pays well, or is it because there is a demand, there's aging population, people are getting older, there's people need medical care? So I think the critical thinking part becomes a lot more important than the knowledge itself. So when they understand what they are studying, right, it's not just the knowledge, but they start thinking ahead. Like, so what does let's say the medical industry, what does it really need now that doesn't exist in the past, right? The AI is everything based on what has already happened, but the thought leadership is about thinking about the current situation and like, what do we actually need more, right? And then creating that. I think that is where
the focus should be
to
train
education.
them to think more. In fact, actually, we've always been telling kids that we want them to be curious, to ask more questions. So actually, if we think about it, AI actually allows them to be very curious, because I think that we've all been being parents, we know at this stage where kids ask why over every single thing. So now with AI, with all this information readily available, it actually gives them more opportunities to ask more questions and also have more ready answers. So I guess as parents, as we embrace AI being part of everyday's life, being part of our kids growing up, it's also the other thing is also to safeguard them on what is correct information. Because I think like what you said, right, information is so readily available for kids these days, but at their very young tender age, it's a little bit tricky for them to be able to differentiate what is the right information and what is wrong. So I guess as a parent myself, I've also been thinking, probably it's really guiding them on how to apply all this knowledge to everyday life, and not just have a question, go to your handphone or go to your laptop and type it out. So it's not the self-entitled thing, okay, anything I ask, I get an answer within the next couple of minutes. But really a lot more thinking, how can I even give a better prompt to AI to give me a better answer.
Correct. Absolutely.
So other than that, as an investment advisor, right, how do you think AI is going to change financial planning in terms of how you handle clients' portfolio? How do you think this will change in the entire FA space probably in the next 5 to 10 years as well?
Actually, I think that AI will make financial advisors' role even more important than ever. So a lot of people may have the misconception that, with AI, you can displace a financial advisor. But you think about this, right? The whole reason why people work with financial advisors in the first place is not because they don't know how to invest. Sometimes they don't know how to invest, but some people that know how to invest, they still work with a financial advisor. And that is because we are humans, right? So humans tend to make decisions based on emotions. So take, for example, if today you ask an AI, what is the fastest way to, let's say, and I'm 30 years old, how's the fastest way to hit $1 million? Then they'll tell you, okay, you need to do this, and then you need to spend very little, just save a lot and everything. So the information available, right, is the same for everyone. But the fact is that everyone will take the same information and then they will do it differently. And what is the variance over here is the human emotion. Because everyone has different aspirations, different motivations, and everything. So
and different pace of life as well. Right?
Correct. So I think the financial advisor's job is really to help them, make these decisions and kind of like partner them in some of these this journey so that they stick to the plan. Like, knowing to go to the gym is one thing. Whether you actually go to the gym is another thing, right? And the second point, I think, why increasingly a financial advisor is like very important is because we live in an era where we don't lack information, to be honest. Like, whether is it Google or is it AI, we live in an era where there is tons of information. The problem with information is that information can be good, but there can be misinformation, there can be scams also, right? So information is not a problem. Distilling the information is very important. Like, what is actually good information and what is relevant information? Like, for example, information that's relevant to you may not be relevant to me because we have different family background, different aspirations, and all. So I think the financial advisor's job is not the information age. It was never about the information age. It's about distilling what information is actually relevant for you. Because as a retail investor, it can be very overwhelming.
Complex also.
When I sometimes I type and then like, wow, can I actually take this advice? You don't know also, right? So I think the job it becomes a lot more important.
So talking about financial planning, right? We also can move on to like the next measure that came out after budget 2026 is actually the discussion on the new investment scheme that's expected to roll out in 2028. So based on the information that's available right now, basically this new investment scheme is to potentially offer simpler, lower cost, and a more diversified investment options, and basically to give people more flexibility beyond the current CPF investment scheme that's available. So what's notable in this life cycle investment product is basically they are supposed to be designed to adjust over time. So this seems to be targeted at long-term investors who are open to taking on a little bit more risk in exchange for a slightly higher return than what's available right now. And then they probably don't have the time or expertise to actively manage their portfolio. So with all this information that we have, do you personally think that having more options for CPF is actually a good thing?
No, that's a great question. I think we have to discuss this more in broad. A lot of the final details haven't really been released yet. But I think generally speaking, it's a good initiative, right? So having this additional option, I think it's beneficial. It's good. But what's even more important is, I think, the education that comes with this new scheme. Because unlike the current CPF schemes, right, where let's say you put money in OA, you get 2.5% fixed return, right, and it's guaranteed by the CPF board. And then you go into CPF Life, it is an annuity that gives you a guaranteed return for your entire life. The new CPF investment scheme, this life stage-based investment scheme, is going to be different, right? So there will be a mix of bonds, mix of equities, which means that traditionally what people are very used to for CPF is that, if I put money in CPF, it's a straight line up. But this CPF portfolio, these investment options, right, will come with volatility. So I think it does help people over the long term because it does, by taking on more risks, you can get high potential returns. But at the same time, if we are not comfortable with volatility, it can lead to making mistakes, like emotional decisions. If someone is not
prepared to see the volatility movement.
So I think the new option is great. It's great for people. It's a very good option. But what has to come hand in hand is the education. The education is actually the most critical.
So there's a lot of different kind of investors who are investing their CPF funds. So based on the information we have, what kind of investors do you think will benefit the most from this new scheme?
Generally speaking, I guess the group of people that will benefit most from this are the DIY investors because they are already comfortable with volatility, right? And if I'm DIY, one of the things I want to make my own decisions, right? I know my risk appetite well, I know how to invest on my own. What I'm looking for is a cost-effective solution. So I think DIY investors would be very suitable for these investment schemes.
So I think having helped a lot of clients manage their CPF investment portfolio over the years, right? What is a common mistake that you think people make when they invest their CPF? And what are the common advice that you've been giving your clients with regards to CPF investing?
So I think, again, CPF investing is a tool, right? Whether it's good or bad, right? There's no good or bad. One of the key mistakes that people make generally in investing, not just CPF, is making emotional decisions. So what do I mean? So when I talk about emotions, there are two main emotions. One is fear, one is greed, right? Two main emotions. Greed is, for example, right, today when I see my friend invest their CPF and then they say, oh, my CPF investment made money, you should buy also. Then you're like, wow, quite good, it make like
I just
8%. Then I buy, right? So I think that in itself is not a good decision, right? Yes, your friend made money, right? But it doesn't mean that you continue buying that, right? You will also make the same amount of money.
And entering the market at different timing, so it plays a part.
Yeah, so I think that is a decision based on greed. So fear, on the other hand, is if you already invested. Let's say you listen to your friend and then your friend made money and then you invest your money, and then some geopolitical event happens and there's some unrest in the world. You turn on the TV every day, you see bombs everywhere. Then you're a bit scared, right? And then you see that how come your friend invested and then he made money, right? But after you start investing,
enter the market, everything goes down.
Coming down, and they say, oh, maybe it's not for me, and then you exit. So that is first one is a decision based on greed. Second one is a decision based on fear, right? So I think both are the common mistakes. So I think in how we think about investing generally, or even your CPF investments, right, is that we want to have a slightly longer horizon, right? So there will definitely be volatility. It goes up and down. It's like for sure. Like you'll go up, it will come down also. There will be days that you see it goes down negative. So we have to be realistic and we need to give a realistic timeline. So look at things beyond just a few months, right? If you want to invest your monies, you should look for at least 3 to 5 years minimum, right? Otherwise, monies that you cannot park aside for at least 3 to 5 years, you should just hold it in your CPF or hold it as cash and not invest it. Yeah.
So what are the usual advice you give clients who actually come to you and say, hey, Yang Zhi, I want to invest my CPF, but my heart cannot take it. What are my options and how should I handle my portfolio in this case?
So I think quite in alignment with the new life stage CPF investment schemes, right? I would assume, right, that it is a mix of equities and fixed income. So for investors, right, what it really means is equities means ownership in stocks. So it is very volatile. It goes up and down, right? So if you invest in a global index, right, what your expected return is between like 8 to 10% over the long term. And then the other class is what we call fixed income, which are relatively stable. It's not a straight line up, but the fluctuation is a lot less, right? So for bonds, those represent debt. So when you're investing in these bonds or fixed income, right, I think you can expect anywhere from say 2% to 4%, 5%, right? So it's lower return, but at the same time, in exchange you get more comfort in terms of the volatility.
You sleep better at night.
So right, it is like mixing a cocktail. Some people like it more salty, some people like it more sweet, some people like it more heavy on alcohol. So if you're more conservative, then you add a bit more bonds so that you can sleep better at night. Then equities you can still have, right? And then you have less of it, right? But if you're more aggressive, then you have more equities, you have less bonds. So I think for people that are conservative, trying to take baby steps, I think it's important not to go like full on equities, because if the market swings, they may make an emotional decision.
So for conservative investors, it's actually probably more ideal to work with a financial advisor who's able to customize a portfolio according to how much risk and how much they can, different life cycles or how much volatility they can actually stomach at that stage. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as a DIY investor, you probably won't know when's the time to reduce or increase your exposure. But having a financial advisor is where someone actually handhold you to be able to tell you, okay, now's the time to probably go higher on bonds because of the market condition or because of probably a new life chapter that you might need more money for.
Yeah, it's also on this point, I want to add, sometimes investing is a bit like swimming, because you can read theoretically, right? When you are in the pool, when you're in a very deep pool, you just relax, slow down your breathing, and then you will float already, right? But in the actual situation, when you jump in the pool and you're struggling for air, right? And then you remember, I need to relax. Can you actually relax during that point? It may be difficult, no? Whereas in the same situation, there is a coach next to you, right? Telling you, hey,
you feel more assured because there's someone beside you, right? Safety net.
And then it helps you relax and make better decisions, and then you float, right? So I think the same goes for investing.
So I think when we talk about CPF, of course, the next thing we think about is retirement age, right? So another big shift we see in this budget announcement measure is that retirement and re-employment ages in Singapore are gradually being pushed up over the next few years. How does this shift people's thinking about retirement timeline?
First of all, right, how we look at the retirement age. So I guess today if you go to a coffee shop or you sit in a taxi, the uncle say, wow, the retirement age keep going up. But actually, if you look at it from a national standpoint, so we look at it from two levels, national standpoint and the individual standpoint. At a national level, the retirement age that is being set, right, is actually meant to protect Singaporeans' job security, which means companies cannot just
ask you to stop
working because I think you are too old already. You cannot. So in fact, raising the retirement age gives Singaporeans more job security and gives them the option to work longer if they want to. Right, so that's on a national level. It's not telling you that you must work to 64, you must work to 65.
By all means, if you can retire at 30, you can still do so,
yeah, right? So that is the national level. So that is really to protect Singaporeans because as years goes on, right, our life expectancy also go up. So we should be given the option to work longer if we want to. So that's at a national level. The government is trying to protect Singaporeans actually and telling companies you cannot anyhow just fire or ask someone to leave because they're old. At the individual level, I think the retirement is independent of what the government decides. Because today, if you do own retirement planning, the whole idea of retirement planning is for you to decide when you want to retire. So that's when we, sit down with the client and speak about the retirement plan and ask so how much, when you want to retire and how much you want to retire with. How does your retirement lifestyle look like? And we help them understand the trade-offs. Because I think there is always a very practical retirement is both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative because it has to fulfill what you find meaning in life. Retirement has to be meaningful, right? It's not just about stop working, but stop working and then do what you actually want to do, right? So the qualitative part is important. The quantitative is also very important because to achieve whatever you want to achieve, you also need money, right? So there will always be trade-off. Like on an individual level, when you want to plan for retirement, say I want to retire at 40 years old, it's possible. So what we will show, we'll do projections and then what we will show the client is, if you retire at 40, can, right? But what are some of the compromise? Maybe you retire with less money, which means that these are some of the things that initially you want to do, like maybe you want to travel 4 times a year.
Has to be reduced.
Yeah, it has to be reduced 2 times only, right? But if you retire at 50, right, you have more money. Now you can travel 3 times. You retire at 60, you can travel 5 times, and things like that. So there's always a trade-off. But ultimately, I think the government sets what they want to set, right, to protect Singaporeans. Singaporeans as an individual, right, we can take up the responsibility to plan our own retirement and decide when exactly we're going to retire.
So for someone in their 40s, like what you mentioned, right, for people that have always constantly been thinking, I want to retire early, but at the same time, I might not have enough money. There's always a struggle, right? I want to retire early, but it means that I've got shorter time to build up my retirement fund. Now that the government has officially increased the retirement age, do you think this gives more comfort for people to say that, hey, I've got actually a longer time to work towards that, instead of previous mindset is when retirement age is a lot younger, the ideal goal is to probably retire 10 years before the national retirement age. Now that everything has been pushed back, do you think it gives a little bit more comfort that people can slow down a little bit? Because I think a couple of years later, retirement age is 70, right? So if you retire at 60, you're considered 10 years before the retirement age already.
How people generally think about retirement and financial freedom, it's a lot different, I would say, nowadays. Like people don't think that just because I must work until 65. I think the mindset now is vastly different. So I think raising the retirement age does give the comfort that today, if let's say I fire earlier, right, I reach my financial independence earlier. But then, after retiring for say 4 to 5 years, and then I realized my lifestyle changed, my goals changed, right? Because sometimes what you want in life can change also, even after your retirement, right? And then you realize, actually I need more money. You actually have the comfort to know that I can actually still work. Yeah, so if we inverse that, instead of raising the retirement age, you decrease the retirement age, that would be scary. Because now you want to work, right? The company also don't want to hire you. So raising the retirement age actually gives people more comfort. A safety
net to say if you want to re-enter the workforce, you're actually still able to in case you run out of funds, right?
Yeah, nothing is cast in stone, right? Like today, I like to travel 3 times a year. But maybe after retiring for
After traveling so much, you decided like...
Yeah, maybe I don't want to travel. Or I say, oh, actually I love travel. I want to travel 10 times, right? So it can change. So having a older retirement age is good. It gives you the option to re-enter if you want.
So I think we spoke quite a bit about this couple of different measures in the budget 2026, right? So let's bring it back to like everyday life. So imagine if we have viewers or listener in front that's probably, let's say, give an example, they are like 35 years old. They have 1 to 2 children. Currently, as per all Singaporeans, paying off a home mortgage, be it HDB or be it private, drives a car, and with more savings in their CPF. So what should they review based on these measures that's actually been announced in this year's budget?
Yeah, I think they should also do their own budget 2026. Sit down with the spouse and then look at their money, right? So there's an exercise that I do for myself and clients also once a year. So we sit down and then we will list through the entire cash flow. That means, what have I spent on last year, right? And then we're going to set targets for this year, right? So last year, you look at how I spend, so I spend on travel, I spend on utility, I spend on etc. and everything. And then I think with the budget, one segment you really have to look at is the car expense. Because what happens is, the typical CU is 10 years, right? So the used cars today is going to be scrapped 5 to 10 years down the road. The new cars today that you just bought, right, is going to become the old cars. And sooner or later, right, everything is going to be on this new PARF rebate scheme, which is like close to no rebate, very little rebate. So you really have to sit down and say like, okay, so if I own a car, right, how many years more, right, to like 10 years when I'm intending to scrap? And then align that with, say, your needs. So for example, my kids are young now, they need a car because, I still want to fetch them around. But probably after they reach secondary school or, finish their secondary school, probably the need for the car is not so much. Then can start thinking about, do we actually still need a car at that point, and how long more? So I think these are some of the things. As parents, we always think about children, we think about parents and everything, right? But I guess the one person we always need to think about is ourselves, right? So the other thing is also with a lot of potential disruption in terms of let's say AI and stuff like that. When we go to work, we will plan for projects with timeline, KPI, everything, so that it succeeds, right? But the strange thing is a lot of people plan for the company, but they don't plan for themselves, right? So today, if my job is being disrupted by AI, right, do I have enough emergency reserves, right? So I think that's a really important question to ask, especially in a time that's so dynamic like now. You need at least 3 to 6 months of cash. You need to look at it and ask yourself, if today, of course nobody would predict that they will get fired, right? But if it happens, am I prepared for it or not, right? Because time is very dynamic. And of course, the last one is not just short term, but also the long term. Like, I take care of my kids, the car, my job. But when do I actually want to retire? Right? So with my existing cash and CPF, can I actually make more out of it, right? How do what does my retirement goal even look like, right? So a lot of people say they want to retire earlier, right? But if I ask them, so how much do you need at retirement?
What kind of lifestyle you're expecting?
Yeah, and so a lot of people will give very vague answers, or like, like that, I just retire at 65, roughly, right? So it's very difficult to roughly, because as an advisor, our job is to give them the accuracy and help them understand, right? You would be able to achieve this amount of money by this age. So I think that is important, because what I see is a lot of people at 30 plus, they will just brush it off, 40 plus, they brush it off.
And then you don't have a goal that you work towards, because you don't know what exactly the kind of lifestyle and expenses that you will need for that, right?
Yeah, and who becomes very anxious? People in their 50s and 60s.
Because then, your timeline is a lot sharp.
So a lot of people in their 30s, they will say like, don't need to do retirement so far, right? But a lot of people in their 50s, 60s start panicking because they haven't been planning, haven't been thinking about it, haven't been investing. And then now they want to invest very aggressively because retirement feels very real. It's like, wow.
In the next 10 years.
Yeah, it suddenly feels very real to them. So what I'm saying is like younger people should start thinking about it, because now you're in a very comfortable position where you can slowly invest, right? You don't have to rush and put in large amount of money. When you're 50 plus, 60 plus, you really have to invest very aggressively already.
To reach your goal in time, right?
Yeah, but at 30, right, you can take it slow. So I think retirement is something very important to think about as well.
Okay, thank you, Yang Zhi. So as we wrap up today's episode, we hope this conversation has given you a clearer and more grounded perspective on what Budget 2026 really means beyond the headlines. So at the end of the day, these changes hit closer to home than we expect. So for families, they show up in very practical ways like what Yang Zhi mentioned. Things like the reduced PARF rebates could influence when or even whether you should upgrade your car. On the investment side, changes to CPF could open up new opportunities, but they may also introduce new risks, so especially if you are not actively managing your own portfolio. And of course, the gradual rise in retirement and re-employment ages, which may not feel urgent now for young viewers out there, but this actually quietly reshapes how we think about long-term life and career planning. So the key takeaway here from our conversation today is not about reacting emotionally to policy changes, but responding intentionally and thoughtfully. So we'd love to hear from you on how all these measures may have affected your own financial planning or set you thinking on new things to look at this year. So thanks for tuning in to iGM Conversations, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.